what I wanted to do today is somebody wrote in the comments section and said that this is a very bad video explaining flavor profiles. I'm the kind of person where I do not like giving bad advice. So if something is wrong or incorrect, I always am open to feedback or want people to let me know that something is wrong. If the video is really that bad, I'm going to take it down. So what I wanted to do today is actually do a live react to this, to react to my own content as if I am reacting to somebody else's channel. Also, as a side note, for those of you that have been on the channel for a while, I bought a new XLR cable, so let me know in the comments if the volume issue is fixed. If not, I'm going to have to mess with some other settings. But with that out of the way, let's get started.
What exactly is a flavor profile? Well, in simple terms, a flavor profile is the combination of flavors and aromas that make up a dish.
Okay, so 9 seconds in, I've given the definition of a flavor profile. Off to a good start so far. I didn't have a bunch of crap in front. I didn't have like a 30-second intro or anything like that.
Flavors, they can be sweet, salty, sour, bitter, umami, and spicy. Each flavor has its own unique taste that can be combined with other flavors to create a complex and interesting dish. In art, there is a color wheel to help identify how colors relate to each other. In cooking, we have a flavor star.
Okay, hold on a second. So now we are 26 seconds in, and I've shown an image of the flavor star, the flavor hex, along with a color wheel, and explain how those different colors might relate to each other as far like as if they were flavors. And also, let's go back to the color, the wheel really quick.
Create a complex and interesting dish. In art, there is a color wheel to help identify how colors relate to each other. In cooking, we have a flavor star.
Okay, right here. So right here, the different arrows show different flavors as they relate to each other. And you can see how you could take sweet and bitter, and you might need some type of bridge. So the yellow, I mean, if you look at this, the yellow lines, they enhance each other, and the other one is the flavors balance each other. So sweet and salty, that's why, like, if you're making a brine, if you add sugar and salt to the brine, it makes it seem as if it is less salty, but there's only so much that you can correct something. A sauce, for example, like a marinara, you could put salt in it, and then if you start adding sugar, it'll balance that saltiness out. But at the end of the day, if you have too much salt in there, you just have too much salt. So you can try and fix stuff, but there are limits into what you can do. But using flavor balancing techniques can actually help you if you do over-season a dish. So far, so good. I mean, we're not even 30 seconds into this video.
For the basics, and we have a flavor wheel from anything from beer to coffee to flowers to herbs, whatever. Pretty much for anything that you can think of. But for these purposes, we're going to be talking about this one. Flavor profiles can be complementary or contrasting. Complementary flavors are things that work well together and enhance each other. For example, sweet and savory flavors will often complement each other. But on the other hand, contrasting flavors are those that create a balance of flavors in a dish. Adding a sour component to a sweet dish can create a balanced flavor profile. With sweet and savory, you often need to bridge the flavor to make the dish come together. Just throwing blackberries onto venison, for example, isn't good enough. But if you take those blackberries and turn it into a sauce and add an acid to that sauce like balsamic vinegar, that acid creates a bridge to bring the flavors together and keep it from being one-dimensional. So it's also important to understand how different flavors will relate to each other. For example, salt is often used to enhance the flavor of a dish.
I think this part here, I'm going to listen really carefully to this. I think this is the part that he's talking about where he said that the whole video is ruined and the whole video is bad because of what I'm about to say here. So let me see if I screw up the whole video with this.
Salt can overpower other flavors. Similarly, sour can balance out sweetness, while bitter flavors can add complexity to a dish. Bitter flavors can be all kinds of different things. Usually they're going to be dark leafy greens and stuff like that. Umami, which is often described as savory or meaty flavor, can add depth to a dish. So when people say a dish is one-dimensional, they are usually referring to only one flavor being prominent. It's like trying to paint with a single color. Those of you that know art know that it's totally possible to paint with one color, but in most cases, what you would use is a monochromatic scale. So even though it is one color, there are still shades, tints, and hues that create that depth. If you create a dish where you poach a pear, for example, you could do caramelized pears and create a pear sauce, but those cooking methods and ingredients will add the depth you need. So you have pears 3 different ways on the plate with 3 different cooking methods and 3 different flavor profiles. Next, let's talk about the importance of salt. Salt is a crucial component of flavor profiles and is often used to enhance the flavors of a dish. MSG does the same thing. However, it's important to use salt in moderation because obviously too much salt can overpower other flavors and ruin the dish. As a line cook or chef, it's important to taste your dish as you go and adjust the seasonings as you need.
Okay, so right there, that's what he's saying ruined the whole video. That's what makes the video bad, because I said you should adjust the seasoning as you go. And what he's saying is that you only add salt at the very end. Now, this can be true depending on what you're making, but when it comes to seasoning a dish, usually when you're putting the seasonings in, it depends on when you're going to do, like, okay, when I say taste as you go, I mean not just salt. I think maybe that's where he's getting mixed up. You do finish with salt, but it's not a requirement that you add salt at the end every time that you're cooking. Sometimes you want to add salt like right away. Sometimes you don't add it till later. It really depends on the recipe. I'm talking about adjusting your flavors and your seasoning as you go. And when I say taste your dish, I don't always mean that every time you taste your dish, you're going to be adjusting. My marinara has been simmering for a while. I need to know if I need more seasoning in it. I'm going to taste it, and oh, well, it's been simmering for so long that at first I thought it was going to not be salty enough, but a lot of the liquid reduced down, and I no longer need that salt because the flavors are now concentrated. So that's all I was trying to say with this thing. So I don't know how that ruined the whole video, but let's keep going.
Can always add more, but it's way harder to fix an overseasoned dish. Just taste and adjust, the line cook's version of measure twice, cut once. Let's discuss some common mistakes that people make when
measure twice, cut once. It's better to taste and adjust your seasonings as you're cooking than it is to never taste your dish, add everything at the end, and then hope for the best. Everybody that has any kind of cooking experience knows that tasting is extremely important, and it's actually one of the biggest mistakes most home cooks make is they don't taste their dish, and that's how they end up with a bad product. Tasting will also tell you, for example, if you're making something with a lot of milk or cream in it, maybe you scorched the soup, but you don't find out till after you're done because you never tasted the dish. Now you don't have time to start over.
Comes to flavor profiles. One common mistake is obviously using too much salt, but you could also use too much of other seasonings. Common seasonings that people will overuse will be things like cumin, ginger, garlic, cloves, nutmeg, allspice, those types of things.
All of those seasonings that I just listed, you can overpower a dish really quick, a lot quicker than you might think using too much cinnamon. If you're new to cooking, it's best just to completely go with the recipe, but if you are gonna try and make your own, you're really good. That's when I say taste and adjust. You're better off starting with a small amount of something like nutmeg and adjusting and tasting as you go to kind of figure out what you want your flavor profile to end up. You don't want to end up with a dish that's just nutmeg flavored chicken with a hint of salt or whatever.
Easily overpower other flavors in the dish, and with the ones I listed, a little bit goes a long way. Another mistake is not balancing out flavors properly, which can leave a dish feeling one-dimensional, as we previously discussed with the blackberry venison thing. It's important to taste your dish as you go and make adjustments.
You can't just make chicken and then dump a can of peaches on it and don't have any other, like, you're going to want some kind of salty thing to balance it out. I probably wouldn't put peaches on chicken anyway, but I'm just throwing something out there to give you an idea. You have bland, plain chicken breast with a can of peaches. Nobody's going to want to eat that. It's going to taste like crap, But there might be a way that you can figure something out in order to use sweetness and enhance the flavors and balance it out with something salty. Maybe put in something that's a little crunchy, and maybe you could figure it out. I don't know. Depending on how many views this gets, maybe they'll try that as a challenge. I'll try to make like chicken and peaches work together. Let me know. We'll see.
As you need to create a well-rounded flavor profile. Ultimately, understanding flavor profiles is absolutely essential for any line cook, anybody that's in the cooking industry, or even if you just want to cook a dish for somebody. By understanding how different flavors interact with each other and knowing how to balance those flavors out, you can create a delicious and complex dish that guests will actually really enjoy. Remember to taste your dish as you go, make adjustments as you need to create that perfect flavor.
Yeah, see, this is what his big problem is. His big problem is that I say taste and adjust your seasoning. Like, who doesn't taste their food? Who always adds salt only at the end for everything they make? That's ridiculous. Now, I'm not saying that it's wrong to add salt at the end of the dish, but what I am saying is that there are hundreds of thousands of recipes. Every recipe is going to be different when you add the salt. You know, what about a brisket, for example? Brisket, you're going to season it before it goes on the smoker. Most of the time, right? Chicken, you're going to season the chicken probably before you grill it. A lot of times pepper is the one that you want to avoid adding when it comes to meat until it's closer to the end of the cooking process, because pepper can burn. So it's better to salt something and then pepper it maybe a little bit later or a little bit further into the cooking process. This is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. The pepper will add a bitter flavor to it. Now, if you want a little bit of that bitterness, that'll be okay, but you run the risk of it tasting kind of off, right? So, yeah,
to flavor profiles, but there are so many other components. An easy example of this would be something like mouthfeel. You could have a whole bunch of different flavors on the plate, but if it all has the consistency of pudding, it's not going to be very good. So texture, mouthfeel, and...
Okay, so then I go into my spiel at the end here. So, I mean, that's it for that part of it. So I wanted to show you guys something. I had a flavor Bible, but I wanted... I'll just put it up here. I'll just put it up here somewhere. It's a flavor Bible. I own it. It's a really great book. Now, here's the thing. This is a 4-minute and 50-second video. It's not a long video at all. And the amount of information contained within developing flavors and flavor profiles can be very extensive. This was supposed to be a breakdown that was enough to get you started, that you can watch this video and have an understanding of it. But, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with the video. Let me know what your thoughts are below, but I disagree. I don't see what the problem is. Otherwise, you guys have an awesome day, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.